Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We are truly sorry that we cannot be with you in person today. The current situation in the region made the traveling possible for us. I'm very much grateful to the CVF and DawnMedia for making it possible to join you in this way. My name is Ali Gülcegün. I'm presenting on behalf of the Global Renewables Congress, drawing on a new report by our colleague Dr. David Jacobs on Pakistan's solar revolution and what it means for the global south. You are exactly the people this report was written for. I hope it is worth your time. Let me start with something that I think many of you already sense, but the official data has not yet fully captured. Pakistan's official electricity registry shows around 130,000 net metered solar installation, roughly 1.5 gigawatts. That looks manageable. The actual reality is entirely different. Over the past 4 years, Pakistan has imported solar panels from China equivalent to almost its entire power generation fleet, an estimated 17 gigawatts, with 4 to 5 million systems installed. The vast majority are unregistered and invisible to planners. This is not a criticism of any institution or individual. This happened faster than any regulatory system was designed to track. But it means Pakistan's energy planning has been working with the wrong numbers. And that is where we need to start. Why did millions of Pakistani families install solar panels with no government support? The answer, I think, is quite straightforward. The grid was not delivering what people needed, and three things converged at once. First, prices. Grid electricity rose 155% between 21 and 24. Bills in Karachi and Lahore began exceeding a monthly rent. Solar became a financial necessity, not a lifestyle choice. Second, reliability. Load shedding lasted 8 to 12 hours a day in many areas. No cooling in 45-degree heat, no production for industry. The grid was failing to deliver. Third, cost of panels dropped 80% globally. Chinese exports increasing the flow to the global south. Combine those three. The consumer decision is not surprising. It is rational. Where did those unaffordable prices come from? Understanding that is critical. Pakistan introduced capacity payments for private power producers in 1994, a reasonable response to severe electricity shortages at the time. Investors received fixed payments whether their plants generated electricity or not. But look at what that created. The share of Pakistan's electricity tariff going to capacity payments, so simply paying plants to exist, rose from 41% in 21-22 to 61.5% by 23-24. Nearly two-thirds of every electricity bill now goes to power plants barely running, because solar has displaced the need for them. The policy designed to secure affordable electricity became the primary driver of the unaffordability that is now pushing consumers off the grid entirely. The same logic played out in Pakistan's gas supply contracts. Long-term take-or-pay LNG agreements required payment for fixed volumes, used or not. When grid demand fell because millions switched to solar, Pakistan found itself paying for gas it no longer needed. By 25, roughly 45 of 120 contracted cargoes, nearly 40% had to be cancelled. The estimated cost from stranded LNG obligations alone, $378 million US per year. These are not abstract figures. This is the money that could have gone toward grid modernization, education, or health. Instead, it is the fiscal consequence of the contracts signed before the distributed solar revolution that changed the demand picture. It is a warning for every country in this region still signing long-term fossil fuel agreements. For the policymakers in this room, this slide is the most technically important. Pakistan's planning system tracked what official data showed. Registered plants, net metered solar, official imports, historical grid consumption. That is the left side of the slide. What is missed on the right side was 4 to 5 million unregistered installations, over 15 gigawatts of behind-the-meter capacity, rising panel imports never cross-referenced with deployment data, and grid demand quietly falling as consumers self-generated. Pakistan has no mandatory DG registry, no systematic satellite tracking, no import deployment, no cross-referencing. These are not exotic tools. They exist, and without them, accurate national planning is impossible. I want to be constructive here. This is a solvable problem. The recommendations in the report are specific, practical, and implementable without large budget allocations. We will come to them very shortly. Everything I have described leads to one conclusion, and I want to state it directly. For most of electricity history, consumers were captive. No alternative to the grid. Whatever it cost, whatever quality it delivered, the consumers had no choice. That era is now over. In Pakistan and across the global south, consumers now have an alternative. The diagram on the screen shows the shift from captive customers fed by a centralized system to customers who choose between decentralized supply and the grid. The grid remains essential for nights, for winter, for heavy industry, but it now has to earn its customers. Restrictive policies will not reverse this. They will only push more installations off the books. So the question is, what should be done? The report identifies 5 interconnected policy areas. Let me take each one very briefly. First, rate design. Remove legacy costs from bills. Introduce time-of-use tariffs and make grid usage fees flexible enough to compete with self-generation. Second, contracts. No new inflexible take-or-pay agreements. Include volume flexibility in every new power purchase or fuel supply contract. Third, track distributed solar, a mandatory digital registry combined with satellite mapping and import data cross-referencing. Fourth, system planning. Explicitly model distributed solar rollout. Shift from the base load plans to flexible, fast response peaking capacity. Fifth, grid financing. Cover part of grid costs through public budget, not tariff surcharges that push more consumers off the grid. For immediate priorities, and I frame these not as external prescriptions, but as recommendations drawn from Pakistan's own experience. 1. Accelerate IPP and LNG contract restructuring, legacy costs of the electricity bill, not about penalizing the investors, it's about aligning contracts with current market reality. 2. Launch the National DG Registry, digital, simple, mandatory. You cannot plan a system that you cannot see. 3. Introduce time-of-use tariffs, make the grid competitive at the hours solar cannot cover. Evenings, winter, industry peak demand. 4. Treat grid as public infrastructure. Redirect development bank support from generation, where private capital now flows freely, toward transmission and distribution, where it does not. Restrictive policies will not stop Pakistan's solar revolution. They will only make it more chaotic and more costly. Pakistan has something rare, a real-time view of what happens when distributed solar scales faster than the system is ready for. That experience is valuable knowledge for Pakistan and for the rest of the global south. The question is whether policy planning and investment can adapt fast enough to turn that growth into an asset. I believe this beautiful country has the expertise and the will to do exactly that. Thank you very much for your attention.